Welcome back to Queens of the Damned, a horror podcast. This is episode 51, and we are talking about time travel horror today. But before we get into the episode, I would like to thank our listeners one more time for sending in questions for our 50th episode. The questions were great. We had a lot of fun answering them, and we hope you guys enjoyed that episode and you got your answers that you wanted. So without further ado, here's episode 51.
Okay, so my choice for this week is a 2015 movie. It's called The Final Girls. It's very, very funny. So it stars Aaliyah Shawkat, Taissa Farmiga, Malin Ackerman, and Nina Dobrev, and a bunch of other people. So it's basically a parody. I don't have a ton to say about this movie because there's no deep meaning to this movie. I mean, it's basically a parody of slasher films. And when I say slasher films, I mean bad 80s slasher films. So it's about this girl named Max, and she's the daughter of this really famous scream queen named Amanda Cartwright. And Amanda's known for her role in the 1986 slasher movie Camp Bloodbath, which it's supposed to be, I think, a riff on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. So Amanda and Max are leaving an audition, and they get into a car crash, and Amanda's killed. So 3 years later, Max and her two friends, Gertie and Chris, are convinced to attend a double feature of Camp Bloodbath and Camp Bloodbath 2. So at the screening, they run into Vicky, who's Chris's ex-girlfriend. And so they're in there watching the movie, and the theater catches fire, and Max grabs a machete that someone brought as a prop, and she cuts through the movie screen to get her friends to safety. So Max...
What movie theater let somebody bring in a real machete as
this movie theater
a prop?
That's the lowest bananas thing that happens in this movie. That's the bottom of the ladder. So, Max, Gertie, Chris, Vicky, and then their other friend Duncan, wake up in the woods, and they realize that they've actually woken up inside the movie. So they are inside Camp Bloodbath, and the group ends up hitching a ride to the camp by pretending to be counselors. So when they first get there, they think this is amazing and hilarious, right? They're like, oh my god, we're in the movie, we're going to see it play out, and then it's going to end. So they let the first couple murders happen, and they don't do anything, right? Because they've all seen the movie. But then their friend Duncan is killed by the film's villain, and they realize that they are in danger too. They realize that anyone can die. So they come up with this plan, and their big plan is to stop the cast from having sex. Because every time somebody has sex in the movie, they die, right? So they basically do these increasingly ridiculous things to stop the counselors from having sex with each other. So eventually, though, they realize that it's not really working, and so they tell the counselors, the movie characters, there's a serial killer on the loose, and the counselors freak out. And they try to flee in a car, but they get killed in a car crash. And at that point, Max realizes this car crash didn't happen in the original movie. So even the movie characters are not safe, right? Anyone can die at this point. So they come up with this plan to get the killer's machete into the hands of the original final girl, who of course was played by Max's mother. And then she can kill him and end the movie, and they'll be free. So eventually, everyone is killed or wounded in various creative ways, leaving only Nancy and Max. So Max tells Nancy that her real-life counterpart is her mother, and Nancy ends up sacrificing herself to lure the killer in so Max can kill him. And so Max becomes the final girl, and she fights and decapitates him with his own machete. So the next day, Max awakens in the hospital, and all of her friends are alive, And she's excited. She's like, oh my God, we made it out. We made it out. And then all of a sudden they hear the killer's theme song. And they realize that they're in the opening scenes of Camp Bloodbath 2. And that's where the movie ends. And that's where the movie ends. So this movie was written by, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Teen Witch.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
Okay. So anyone who's listening who's my age knows that Teen Witch was a slumber party staple. Everybody watched Teen Witch. And this movie is written by the obnoxious younger brother from Teen Witch, which I thought was hilarious. Because he is truly one of the most annoying, horrible, disgusting movie characters of all time. I don't know, this movie is just really funny. I mean, there's not a lot to it. It's not this, like, deep movie. There's really nothing to analyze in it. I mean, it obviously is making fun of horror movies in general, slasher movies. And it makes fun of some of the tropes, like with the counselors, every time they have sex, somebody dies. Of course, that's really big in the Friday the 13th movies. It's really big in the Halloween movies. So yeah, it's just a fun, funny movie. It's definitely one that, like, I saw it when it came out. And I would probably watch it again. I mean, it's just fun. It's good for, like, a lazy afternoon. Like, it's snowing, you don't feel like going outside. Just watch this movie and laugh. So that's it. That's my pick.
Did you see it, Miranda?
No.
Oh, you didn't? I thought you had seen it.
Just me.
Mm-mm.
I
was like, oh, wow, she's quiet. I mean, she really didn't like it.
No.
First.
No, I'm the only one that saw it, but it's really good. It's very funny, and all the actors are really good. Like, they all really play into kind of this over-the-top, campy material without being, like, I don't know. Like, it's definitely funny and campy without being bad. But it's, like, purposefully campy.
That's actually difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult. That's difficult to do.
It is difficult. It is difficult to make something that's purposefully campy and not have it be, like, kind of shitty. So this one's really fun and very funny.
So is Thaisa Farmiga the final girl?
No. Aaliyah Shawkat is.
Dang.
I love Thaisa
I really like
Farmiga.
Thaisa Farmiga.
I do too.
She's great.
Wait. No, she's not. Now you have me questioning. But no, I don't think she is. Now I feel like I'm losing my mind. Oh my God. I'm having like this moment of
Isn't she in
panic.
the center on the cover, though? Like, I've seen the...
She is the
Yeah,
final
I thought
girl.
she
You're
was.
right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
My brain,
'cause she
I
was
swear to
kind
God,
of-
I can't wake up at, like...
Other than Nina Dobrev, she's kind of, I feel like, the star. Especially because that came out when she was really popular for American Horror Story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
So.
she is definitely, I mean, she's the star, for sure. But everybody is so good in this movie. Everybody is good. Everybody is funny. It's just really fun. It's just kind of a stupid fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, or the director described it as if Pleasantville was a trashy horror movie from the 80s. Which is definitely true. I can see that comparison. That's it. That's my
Yeah, I
pick.
need to see that movie. When it came out, I wasn't sure about it. Just because I don't know. I don't know what it was about it, but I was like, this seems kind of just strange and doesn't seem like something I would like, but over time I've been meaning to watch it. I was really, really annoying when I was younger with movies. I was so judgmental before anything even came out.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So it says that it was number 9 on BuzzFeed's 19 Best Horror Films of 2015 and number 10 on Rolling Stone's 10 Best Horror Films of 2015. And I remember it got really good reviews.
It did, because, okay, I was thinking the reason that I didn't watch it at first was because I had this long list of horror movies I wanted to watch, and I was looking up the Rotten Tomatoes scores for a bunch of them, and it seemed like this one didn't do very well or something, and that's why I kind of didn't make it a priority. Like, I put it on my list, but
It says it has a,
maybe
a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes.
that's not bad at all for a
No.
horror movie, even.
For a horror comedy? No, not at all.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what led me to kind of like push it aside and think like I'll watch it someday. And I just didn't.
It was good.
Oh, so speaking of really fun time travel horror movies, that the ending gets ruined for, which this wasn't like, I mean, you know what's going to happen in this one. I feel like it's a bit formulaic, right?
The final girls?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you figure out, like, immediately, of course she's gonna run into her mom in the movie.
Yeah.
And of course there's gonna be this, like,
She's gonna
emotional,
end
which
up being
it
the
actually is
one.
pretty well done. The emotional moment between her and her mom when they meet at the end of the movie, you know, is actually pretty well done.
Good. Well, speaking of that, I was thinking when I went to see Halloween that there was a trailer for the second Happy Death Day, and it gave away the ending of the first one. And I hadn't seen it yet, and I was a little pissed off. I know I'm usually not pissed off about spoilers, but I didn't think I was going to go to like a movie and see a trailer and get the first one ruined in the second trailer. They're like, and it turned out to be this person who killed me. And I'm like, well, now I don't have to see it. Okay.
That's such a bummer too, because you really have no idea in that movie who it is. It's such a shocker at the end.
I feel like it is, but
sucks.
also that movie came out how many years ago? And at some point I kind of feel like...
Wasn't
if
it
you
last
haven't-
year?
I feel like it's only been like a year.
Yeah.
It's not.
I
it's
mean,
fairly new.
my shelf life on spoilers and movies is like a month. And if you haven't...
Yeah, it came out a year
If you really,
ago.
really, really want to see it and you haven't seen it within that month, then...
Oh, yeah, I
don't
get that.
have-
It's just that I didn't
Yeah.
expect the trailer for the second one to give away the first one. That usually doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't think. Like, I've never seen it before.
Like, I remember Anne Hathaway was on The Daily Show when she did Les Mis, and and she, like, made some comment about Fantine dying, and the audience, like, booed. And Jon Stewart was like, this book has been out for, like, 200 years. Like, pick up a book.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah.
You had 200 years to read it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You had a long time to read this book, watch the musical, watch any of the other movies made of Les Mis. I mean, stupid.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can say with Happy Death Day, like, just because you know the ending doesn't mean it's going to ruin the whole movie for you. It's still a great movie.
Good. I still
it's
plan
still-
on watching it.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And, like, that movie knows that it's not an original concept, and it kind of makes fun of itself for that. So,
That's cool.
it's really good. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Really good.
Who's next?
Me.
Yay!
So, I picked the Cloverfield Paradox, which came out this year. I didn't realize it came out this year until I started doing my research, and I was like, oh my god, it did, didn't it? So this movie was directed by Julius Ona and produced by J.J. Abrams. My favorite thing I think about this movie was the hype around it. So, like, somebody leaked. I don't know if you guys remember this. Somebody leaked that there was going to be a trailer during the Super Bowl. And that was the only reason I watched the Super Bowl this year, was because I had heard that this was going to happen. And it did. And it was super exciting. And basically it just said, like, after the Super Bowl's done, it's going to be on Netflix. It was just like, it was the coolest thing ever. I loved it.
That's awesome.
But the first time I watched it, I had no idea what happened. I was so confused. I think I didn't pay attention like I should have, but I think I figured it out this time, so it's fine. But just like 10 Cloverfield Lane, this movie exists in the Cloverfield universe, but it's not necessarily a sequel or a prequel. It's kind of a prequel, but not entirely. It's kind of weird. It does take place before Cloverfield in the beginning, not by the end. So in this movie, the world's energy resources are depleting, and they say they're going to be exhausted within 5 years. So the world is basically in this huge energy crisis, and it's causing international conflict. War eventually breaks out between Russia and Germany. But before the war breaks out, they build a spaceship called the Cloverfield, which has the Shepard particle accelerator in it. And basically, these astronauts have to go into space and try to get this accelerator to work. Because if they get it to work, then it's going to solve the energy crisis, and they're going to unlock unlimited power. While they're in space, they kind of start having issues with one another because they are taking forever to accomplish their goal. They can't seem to get the accelerator to work, and they're actually out there for 2 years. The main character, Hamilton, is told to begin with that she only has to be out there for 6 months, so it takes them forever to get this particle accelerator to work. And while they're working on it, they are at one point watching some news station from Earth in which they talk about the Cloverfield Paradox. And the Cloverfield Paradox basically says that this particle accelerator could rip open the fabric of space-time, and shatter reality, which will then release chaos, including like monsters and demons and all that kind of stuff. And they pretty much just say, whatever, that's not going to happen, that's stupid. So they finally get the particle accelerator to work, but it overloads. And that's when all the weird stuff starts happening. They can't find Earth anymore, and Earth can't find them. And again, things just get really, really weird. They find a woman fused into power lines, and she says that she's part of the crew. Nobody knows her. And actually, the moment that they appear to go into this other dimension, or when the particle accelerator overloads, is when the first Cloverfield movie would start. It's so hard to explain this movie. Like, right when the particle accelerator overloads is when the Cloverfield monster comes down to Earth, and starts attacking. So he's there on Earth while they have been taken to an entirely different dimension. But other weird things, a crew member basically gets eaten by the wall, and the wall takes his arm. It's really weird. A bunch of worms disappear, and they end up inside a crew member, and the worms, like, talk to him, and then they explode out of him. Also very strange. And they eventually find Earth, and they start hearing transmissions. What they're hearing through these transmissions, though, is that the war has been going on for 18 months. And that 2 days ago, the Cloverfield had crashed into the Atlantic, and that most of the crew members had died. And that's the minute that they finally realized that they had traveled to another dimension. I don't want to just explain the whole plot line of this movie, but basically all of the crew members just kind of die throughout the film in these really strange ways because they are in this other dimension, and pretty much everything goes in this other dimension. Anything can happen. So our main character, Hamilton, finds out that her kids are alive in this dimension, and she wants to stay. In her life on Earth, in her own dimension, her children had died, and she blames herself for it. So it's kind of a decision that she has to make whether she wants to stay or not. But they eventually do. Hamilton does decide to stay. They get the collider working again, and they get themselves back to their dimension. But once they get back to their dimension, they take off for Earth before Mission Control can tell them to stay up in space. So on her way back, they're talking to Hamilton's husband, and he's like freaking out and saying, why would you let them come back? Because the world is pretty much just being destroyed by the Cloverfield monsters. And that's the Cloverfield Paradox.
Interesting.
Crash course Cloverfield Paradox.
So it ends after the end of the original Cloverfield? Is that right?
It's not really clear, like, where this one ends, like, the monster is on the planet. I can't even remember how Cloverfield ended. It's been so long since I've seen it.
Cloverfield ends with the two main characters, like the guy and his ex-girlfriend, are still in New York City, and they're gonna drop a nuclear bomb on the city to kill the monster, and that's where it ends. With them dropping the nuke.
That did not happen in this movie, so my guess is no, it doesn't end where Cloverfield ends. It's probably somewhere in the middle of Cloverfield.
Okay.
Because, like I said, the monster, the Cloverfield alien or monster or whatever, it comes to Earth at the same time that the collider overloads, which is probably a third of the way into the movie.
Okay.
So Cloverfield will have been going on for a while.
I gotcha. Okay.
And whatnot. So, yeah. I don't know. But that had not happened yet. So my guess is that, no, it's probably somewhere in the middle of Cloverfield where it ends.
Okay.
It's a good movie.
Interesting. I have not seen it.
So good. And all the weird stuff that happens to all the crew members is really strange and fun.
I'll have to watch it. Because I really liked the first Cloverfield, and I loved 10 Cloverfield Lane.
So good.
That is one of my... If the Oscars took horror seriously, John Goodman definitely would have been nominated for an Oscar for that movie. And that's one of my forever bitter that he wasn't nominated. Choices.
Yeah. I love what they're doing with Cloverfield, how they're kind of just turning it into its own universe.
Which is so...
They're not necessarily making it a series, but they're just making it like, you know, all of this stuff happening within this one universe. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of liked... Yeah, and what I really like about it is that I kind of like how... In the original Cloverfield, they don't explain where the monster came from. It's just, like, there. And that's it.
Yeah.
And so I hope that they continue to do this kind of thing, and they just don't explain it. Because, like, I don't want to know.
Right. Yeah, and this one, like, kind of has, like, a mini explanation, but not really. It's pretty much just, like, yeah, we screwed up and we ripped a hole in reality, and this thing appeared. And that's it.
Well, because... I think it's at the end of, like, the very end of Cloverfield. There's, like, the flashback to them on Coney Island. The video of them on Coney Island. And he's recording the ex-girlfriend. And you see this thing, like, this pod-looking thing, just, like, drop from the sky into the ocean. And that's it. And so, like, you get the hint that maybe that's where it came from. But, like, they never explain it. Because that's, like, the last shot of the movie.
Right.
Nikki, have you seen Cloverfield?
I haven't seen either. I haven't seen any of them.
And you should definitely see 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yes.
And I assume this one too. I think we all picked movies that the other two people haven't seen.
Yeah, this is hard to have conversations about.
I was just gonna say, like, if you compare this one to the other two movies, this is not on the same caliber. I think 10 Cloverfield Lane and Cloverfield are much better movies than this one. But this one is still fun and it's still really interesting. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that it's at the same caliber. Like, no one's gonna get nominated for an Oscar for this.
Yeah,
you know.
But
it's still good.
I think this one, and maybe it was the same with the second one. I don't know, but I think this one, J.J. Abrams like took an existing script, like movie script, and they kind of reverse engineered it to fit into the Cloverfield idea. And I don't know if that may have been the same with 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't know. But
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So he was just like, here's the script, but what would happen if it were in the Cloverfield universe?
Right, pretty much.
Like, let's just take these people and put them in this world. That's kind of cool. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know if that was the same with the other one. I remember when the other one came out, people were freaking out because it just, like, appeared all of a sudden. That they were like, oh, yeah, we're releasing a new Cloverfield movie next week in the theater.
Yep.
And people went bananas.
Yep. I love that they're doing that. I think that's
it's
so fun.
fun.
And that's exactly what would have happened with this one if I don't know who leaked it, but if whoever leaked it hadn't done that, then
So
it would have been a total surprise.
that there was a new Cloverfield movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know, so like I was on Twitter during the Super Bowl because I was still on maternity leave, and Ava DuVernay, who did Selma, and she did that one movie Wrinkle in Time, she tweeted that like Netflix was gonna do something really big, but she didn't mention Cloverfield, so maybe someone piggybacked off that. But she was just like, oh my god, Netflix is about to do something crazy, which obviously was dropping this movie with no promo at all.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know how I didn't see this, and I watched Bright twice. It was really bad.
Isn't that like the worst movie on Netflix
horrible.
or something?
But I will
I never saw it
watch
because
the sequel. For sure.
Oh
it
my
was
god.
so bad. It was so bad. It was so bad. But I was like on maternity leave and Damian couldn't be put down, so I just laid in bed 24 hours a day. And so I watched a lot of Netflix, and you know what? It just kept popping up. And so I was like, fine, I'm going to watch it. And then I watched it again.
Oh my god.
It was really bad.
But why did you watch it again?
I don't know why not. It was
Because it's bad!
But it was like so bad that I found it to be kind of enjoyable.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, did you guys see it?
No.
I saw someone on YouTube analyzing it and talking about why it was so bad. So I know what it's about, but I didn't actually see the movie.
I mean, the whole premise is just like orc cop. Like, there's a cop and he's an orc. And like, that's the premise. It's amazing. You guys, I want to do a whole episode on Bright. So bad!
Oh my god.
Did you guys see the Wicker Man remake with Nicolas Cage?
Nope.
Yes.
Horrific. Terrible. Horrible movie.
I purposely avoided
I loved
it.
that movie.
Oh no, Miranda.
I haven't seen it since like I was really young. I can't remember when that came out, but I loved that movie when I was really young.
Miranda, you may
I
literally be
watched
the
it.
only human being on the planet who likes that movie. I have never encountered anyone else who had anything positive to say about that movie, unless it was in the context that I like it, which is it's so fucking bad that I will sit there and watch it and laugh my ass off. It's so funny. You should see the original. The original is amazing.
Okay. I know I need to rewatch it because it wasn't until like within the last like 5 years or so I found out everybody hated it. Well, no, I need to rewatch it. There's a lot of movies that I saw when it came out and I was like, I love this. And then I rewatched it again a couple years later and hated myself a little bit.
When I was like 3 years old, I loved the movie Howard the Duck, which is considered like one of the absolute worst movies ever made. That was George Lucas's follow-up to Star Wars. And,
God.
But when I was 3, I loved it. And like my dad bought it for me on DVD for Christmas a couple years ago. And like I'll never watch it because I don't want all of my happy memories to be ruined. Like, I know it's bad, but I loved it so much. It's like I tried to rewatch the Babysitter's Club movie a few years ago that I loved when I was a kid. It's terrible. It ruined all of my happy memories.
Oh, no. I don't know. I remember the end of The Wicker Man scared me.
The bees. Oh, it's so bad. Oh my god, it's so bad. It's like an all-time Nicolas Cage bad performance too. Oh god.
I need to rewatch it. It's like when Texas Chainsaw came out, like like the recent Texas Chainsaw that was like in 3D and everything. When that movie came out, I loved it. And then I rewatched it like a couple weeks ago and I was like, wow, this is fucking awful.
It's bad.
So bad.
Like, oh my god, that's just one of my favorite Nicolas Cage bad performances.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it.
But that's an example of like, it's so bad that it's amazing. Like, unintentional camp. Like, Nicolas Cage was in this other movie called Season of the Witch with Ron.
Oh my God.
With Ron Perlman, where at the end they headbutt the devil. It's so good.
I liked that movie.
Oh no. You liked it because you thought it was good?
I didn't necessarily think it was good, but I liked it.
I liked it because it was absolutely insane.
You know what? I remember
and Nicolas Cage, like, was so off the rails. It was great. It was an all-time performance.
I remember when that came out and everybody hated it, and most of the reason was because they were like, this is fucking Nicolas Cage in a movie that Nicolas Cage does not belong in. And
why not?
I didn't think it. I don't know. That was everybody's reaction, though, is that this is a movie this is not a Nicolas Cage movie. I liked it. Again, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I liked it.
It was definitely not a good movie, but it was so insane that I love it, and I would watch it again right now and just laugh. It's definitely one where if you're, like, kind of drunk, great. Like, I just remembered there was this review that said that it was almost like a tribute to Monty Python. It was so absurd.
Wow.
What?
But it's in order to be a tribute, it has to be intentional.
I know, but it almost feels like it could have been, like, in a different timeline it could have been.
Maybe I need to rewatch it, because I didn't see that.
Oh, God. Huh. Oh, it was so bad. Okay, back on topic. Nikki.
I have nothing more to say. I have nothing to contribute.
No, what's your pick?
Are you saying do my movie? Look, it's been a really long day.
Well, for a second, I was like, oh my God, did she just, like, not prepare anything?
Right. I was like, oh no.
No. Oh no. God. It's gonna sound like I didn't prepare anything because this movie is so confusing. Like, literally the most confusing movie ever. And I'm really sad that neither of you saw it because I just don't know how to explain it.
Oh boy.
So, is it streaming anywhere?
No. Well, you have to buy it on Amazon Prime, but you can see it on, there's an HD version of it on YouTube, full length. You can just watch it. So.
Oh, perfect.
So yes, it is streaming somewhere.
Okay.
So I chose Triangle. It's a 2009 British-Australian film. And it was written and directed by Christopher Smith, who I don't think he did anything that I knew. I don't think he's that famous. It was kind of an indie film. And it stars Melissa George, who's one of my favorite horror actresses. I just love her so much. Like, she's been in some of the really bad horror films, like Amityville Horror. But I'm enchanted with her. I just love her so much. So this film had a $2.8 million budget, which I thought was interesting. The budget came from the National Lottery Fund. I didn't know that they did that.
Me either.
Like, I've never seen that happen. Anyway, that's how this whole movie was funded. And it's loosely inspired by the myth of Sisyphus. And if you don't really know what that is, Greek myth, this guy Sisyphus makes a promise to death that he doesn't keep. And so he is doomed to push a rock up a hill for eternity and watch it fall back down. So I'm not entirely sure how much I can even tell you about this film, but it follows this woman named Jess who has an autistic son, and she's getting ready in the morning, and she goes to meet her friends in the harbor on this sailboat called the Triangle. And when they take off, after a couple of hours, this weird electrical storm comes out of nowhere, and the water just falls flat, and the sails just fall flat, and they get caught up in this storm, and the boat tips over. And so the remaining group is stuck standing on the top of this upturned yacht, and they see this cruise ship come by. And they decide to board it. They see someone standing up at the railing when they first get on, but they can't find anyone on the ship. And it starts out kind of normally in like typical horror movie fashion, where then someone starts picking them all off one by one on this deserted cruise ship. And this sounds really simple, but I'm not telling you like one half of the details, because a lot of things that happen don't make sense until later. And then when you think those things make sense, more things happen that don't make sense. And by the end of the movie, you're still not even sure if you get it, but you're not sure you get it. So the long and short of it is that Jess soon comes to realize that she has stepped into a time loop. And this is what many people call a closed loop. There's different, okay, so this is where like quantum physics comes in, and there's a lot of it in this movie, and I'm not the person to tell you these facts, but you can go online. I'll put a link on our blog, and someone has written up equations of how this time loop works based on events that happen in the movie. And what makes it so confusing is that it's not just one loop. There are several versions of herself on that ship, and they all have different motivations based on what she learns about the time loop as she goes forward. And I don't want to give a lot away about it because there's so many twists, but she does have a motive for choosing to go through this time loop over and over and over again. She's trying to correct something that happened in her life. That's all I think I'm gonna say about it. One, because it would take like an hour to explain, and two, because I'm not even really sure I understand all of the parameters of what happens. But this film was pretty well received, but it just kind of averagely, and like no one really talked about it that much. It kind of a little bit after it came out, but then it kind of just died off, and like it seems like everyone forgot about it. But this is one of my favorite horror movies. My best guess for why some people didn't like it, like, one, this isn't really your typical horror movie. Like, you think you know what's happening, and then you don't. And so when people don't get what they're expecting from, I don't even know how it was advertised, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't advertised as a movie with the time loop in it. So when you don't get what you're expecting, that could be one thing. Movies like The Witch, stuff like that, if they advertise it a certain way, there's just some films you can't communicate to audiences what they're going to be about before you see them. And also, it's confusing. I mean, a lot of people are not going to like a film that they don't understand what happens even when it's over. You have to watch this film at least twice to notice all the details and understand how it works. But for me, this film really has everything. It has this great lead actress who gets to do this highly physical action role, but also convey a lot of subtle emotion. There's not a lot of dialogue. Like, there is at first when a bunch of people are alive on the ship, but when it's just her and certain versions of herself, there's not a lot said. And it's just got this atmosphere that really puts you right in that universe, right along with her, and gives you that creepy feeling of that claustrophobia of being stuck, doing the same things over and over again. Like, something about this time loop retains objects. So, like, there's a part where she leans over a grate, like, she drops something. She leans over a grate, and her locket gets stuck in it. She pulls back up, and the locket falls through the grate. And when she looks down through it, she sees at least 50 of her locket. So she's gone through this time loop at least 50 times. And these objects accumulate. Bodies accumulate if they're not removed every time the loop repeats itself. Stuff like that. So it's just got this crazy feel to it. And there's tons of twists all the way through it. I'm actually not one for time travel movies because they get boring For me, I'm like, yes, I know they're going through the same day over and over again. Like, I get it. But you're always discovering something new with her, and they don't present things in the same way every time the loop repeats. So every time you're seeing a different angle or a different perspective of the loop, and they don't linger too much on these things that have already happened. We're moving through trying to figure things out with the character. And things that, like, didn't make sense at first now make sense, or they don't, so you're still trying to figure out what the heck is happening. And yeah, I'm sad you guys haven't seen it. It's really, really good. You can go watch it on YouTube.
Too.
It's only an hour and 40 minutes long, so it's a nice, succinct length for a movie like this. And I think it's phenomenal. Just everything about it.
Well, I found it on YouTube, so I'm gonna watch it.
You should.
It sounds so good.
And if this didn't come across to you already, it's not a film you can, like, paint your nails and watch. You have to watch it. Like, you can't look away for a second, because every second something new is happening and something more confusing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've seen a film that was more confusing than this one. I think the director said he was inspired by, 12 Monkeys?
Yeah, that sounds right. 12 Monkeys.
So if you
is
saw
really
12
good
Monkeys,
if you guys haven't seen
yeah,
it.
if you saw that one and you liked it, I think you would like Triangle. And I think there's people, you can read the comments sections on videos that explain this movie, and it just, you'll go down a rabbit hole and never come back, because people are like, well, this movie sucks, and there's a bunch of stuff that they didn't explain, like this moment when she does this, it doesn't fit anywhere in the time loop, and then someone super smart comes in and goes, oh no, look at this is exactly how this fits into the time loop. Or they're asking us this question, it could go this way or this way, and it's just it's amazing.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at QOTD Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/QOTD Podcast, Tumblr at queensofthedamnpodcast.tumblr.com, and YouTube at Queens of the Damn Podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and TuneIn Radio. You can also follow us on our blog, queensofthedamnpodcast.wordpress.com, to find bonus content and extra information on our episodes.
If you would like to donate to our show, you can find us at patreon.com/QOTD podcast, where you can receive special perks as a listener for becoming a monthly patron. If you would like to make a one-time donation, you can send it to QOTDpodcast@gmail.com on PayPal. We'll see you next week. The video's so slow on your side, Rachel, that it looks like your feet are ghosts.
Oh my god, I didn't notice
You're
that!
moving them back and forth, and, like, the video can't catch up, so they look see-through while they're moving.
That's amazing!
Oh my god,
I promise
didn't
I
notice
was
that
listening,
said
but that was cracking me up
I'm
for a
just
little
gonna keep
bit.
doing
That
it.
is amazing.
That's amazing.
That is so cool.
Feet. Do you see it, Miranda?
Yes!
That's so funny.
That's so weird!